Hey, good morning, everybody. Early bird gets the worm. All you guys are in here, ready to roll. I like it. Hope you're doing well today. Good morning, Bob and Cav and Ron and Andy and Gino. Rob's in here. VM Tech, I know that you've already gone off to work, but I hope you have a great day. Who else? Joel's dropping in the room. 2:23 a.m. Good Lord. Gotta sleep every now and then. Guys, good morning and welcome to the Education Room. Miss Debbie, Farrak, Haji. It's great to see you guys. Man, we're gonna start off with two things. Before we do anything, Bob, I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna read your note. So Bob said, Mark, I've listened to you for 3 weeks and heard you say favorable large triggers with an S at least 100 times. But listening to a replay this morning, you finally heard it now, and now it's stuck. And Bob, thank you for posting that because guys, that's really what this classroom is all about. If you've ever been with me for more than a day, you know that I say the same thing every day, right? Sometimes I try to say it a different way. I'll always do my best not to confuse you. Um, but it's the same message, and it's the same message because it doesn't need to change. Because the simple approach that we take to understanding and reading the indicators, it doesn't change from day to day. It doesn't change from market to market. It doesn't change at all. The only thing that changes is maybe whether the market's going up or down, or whether it's crude oil or the NASDAQ, but the patterns are always the same, and the rules are pretty consistent. I got another message this morning that I want to share with you guys where I had inadvertently confused somebody yesterday. When we talked about trend direction, when we talked about strong triggers, um, and it was a great message because I never mean to confuse you guys, but I don't know if I do if you don't tell me. So when we get to strong triggers, when we get to rule number one today, I'm going to put a little addendum in there. He made me a better teacher today, so I appreciate that very much. I want you guys to always feel comfortable. If you're unsure about something that I'm saying, send me a message if you don't want to do it in class. Actually, I love it when it's a message because I am human, and if you're not graceful calling me out in class, I may not be as graceful responding. Inadvertently, of course. But before we do anything, let's talk about the best advantage that we can give ourselves, guys, as we go into the day. And that's really making sure that we're not trading into news, that we're not jumping in front of an emotional freight train. We had 8:30 news. It was high impact unemployment claims. Looks like they're holding pretty strong. The Philly Fed Manufacturing Index. I don't know what that means, guys, and I don't trade it. But what I do is I avoid being in front of news. I avoid being in front of the response. At 9:45, we have two high impact. Was it a dead run? I didn't even set up, guys. I slept in this morning. I'm usually up at 5 a.m. Central. I woke up at 7 today. It was magical. And then at 10 a.m., we have existing home sales. So there's going to be a 15-minute stretch in there where there's the kind of news that I will sidestep and not be a part of. Um, Yesterday during FOMC, I don't know if you guys watched it. It was the wildest phenomenon ever. So, of course, I'm bored and I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the simulator and have some fun. And I watched it for a little bit before I did it. And the patterns looked perfect. The patterns were just ideal and the rules were met even during all of that craziness. But here's what happened is is you would go long at the perfect spot and $600 lower you would see your stop because the market was moving so fast during that FOMC that the Renko bars couldn't adjust to it. The Renko bars couldn't keep up with it. They could only print what they printed, and I guess it was averages. But there was a couple times where I would literally get in on the perfect trade and get stopped out instantly. $600 lower. It was wild, guys. So knowing when news is happening just keeps you out of that. Good morning, JW. Um, and that's what I do first thing every day. I pour a cup of coffee. Yeah, Cav, don't trade FOMC. I tried it. I did. I was like, it's so smooth. I'm going to give it a go. And I was down 2 grand instantly. And I was like, holy crap. Bad decision on my part. So I'll never trade an FOMC day again. I'll never believe that things are right on an FOMC day. Never do it again. It's just not worth it. Go play golf. Go water skiing. Go skydiving. Swim with sharks, right? Wrestle alligators. I don't care. All of those are safer than trading FOMC. And then, of course, everything that I talk about, guys, is going to come from the education page, coming right from the tutorials section. And I'm going to read one more note before we get going on the slideshow and everything today. So Rob posted in the room, good morning. Let's learn about pivot stop outs and 50-50 trades. And this is one, no, so FOMC days, Adriana, they're jockeying for position. FOMC days, guys, go do something else. That's the easiest way. I'm not telling you what to do. That's not my job. But guys, this morning Rob posted in the room. He woke up and he's like, Mark, I need to know more about 50-50 trades, and I need to know more about pivot stop outs. So Rob, today's your day, brother. You set the tone for what we're going to start talking about in the second hour. I've already taken about 5 or 6 pictures for you. But guys, this is what you do. And that's why when I started this classroom, I called it Your Education Room. I'm going to go through my rigmarole, if you will. I'm going to go through everything that I always go through every day. I'm going to talk about the skills that Nexgen are going to help you master. We're going to talk about what's called a high probability trend trade, which is a trade that typically wins 70 to 80% of the time. It's a trade that creates confidence just through the memory of success. And then I am going to throw this one in here before I actually start talking about the rules and everything, because this goes back to the message that I got this morning. So the key to everything that we do, guys, is creating a super solid foundation. Good morning, Roku. Understanding the basics, understanding the most simple concepts, and then compounding from that just a little bit. So for new users, guys, I'm going to blanket you with very conservative rules, the recognition of advantages. And I'm going to give you a solid plan that optimizes your chances of success as you learn to read your indicators. So when we talk about these rules, guys, I'm going to speak of them like if you break one of these rules, life is over. If you break one of these rules, you're never going to win. If you break one of these rules, you might as well just go ahead and go live under a bridge and eat beans with a stick, because adherence to the rules as a brand new user is designed to optimize your chances of success, and that's where the confidence comes from. But what happens is as you learn the rules, you're becoming a chart reader. And chart reading is about 90% of your day. Chart reading is going to let you understand where the market is likely to continue, where it's likely to go, where it's likely to stop, and then really take advantage. And one of the most amazing things in the world, and it warms my cockles to see you guys do this, is as you become a chart reader, you begin to recognize more opportunities, and you don't even realize that you're formulating a plan. You begin to recognize when areas are likely to hold, and you find yourself straying outside of the rules, the most basic rules. And guys, this is amazing. It means that you are in fact becoming a chart reader. But as you become a chart reader, it's your reflection on the rules. It's your reflection on the advantages that are going to allow you to understand the management plan that you need to take, or the safeguards or the stop placements and all these different things that stem from your ability to read a chart. The 3 concepts, likely to continue, likely to go, and likely to stop, guys, we're going to use each and every one of those. We're going to use likely to continue initially for the high probability trend trade. This will be where you're entering. We're going to use likely to go for targets, and we're going to use likely to stop to just not take that next trade where the market may reverse. We're also going to use likely to stop to set us up for the highest probability scenarios, guys. When the market reaches what we call a termination condition and then rockets the other way, this sets you up for the best of the best, because these likely to stop areas are where the people in charge have made a decision to not only go up or down, but to reverse, and reverse with force. And any trade you take after these areas has a higher chance of winning. So we're going to go through a little recognition, but we're going to start the process with trade entry precision. Getting in at the correct spot is what's going to allow you to manage. And management takes your ability to be a chart reader. The high probability trend trade that we're about to walk through, guys, that turns you into a chart reader. Because it's a trade where each indicator on every chart agrees for the trade. It's a trade that is the absolute best of the best with the strongest triggers, with nothing in the way, tons of room to get to your profit targets. And guys, that's the one, as we teach it, that typically wins 70 to 80% of the time. And your goal, especially as a new user, should be to be consistent, to recognize advantages. So we're going to do that today, as we do every day. And I'm going to remind you guys once again, this is your classroom. This is your educational format. Be stingy with the time. Don't worry about posting too much or asking too many questions. If I need to cut it short, I will, and I'll private message you with the rest of your answers. I've never had to do that, guys. I've never had a class so vocal that they overwhelm me. And it begins with posting your trades in the class. Show me what you're doing. Show me what you're seeing. Talk to me on screen about what you're looking at. Tell me how you're reading the chart. Because when you do this, this is the best part of this classroom, guys, is you're going to get feedback on everything that you do. We're going to talk about advantages. We're going to talk about entries. And I'm not just going to say, hey, that wasn't a high probability trend trade, you suck. I'm going to say, let's look at the advantages that were present, and let's look at what you got into. And then we'll talk about, is it something that needs to be managed aggressively or conservatively? Is it something where quick profits are appropriate? So post your trades in the room, guys, everything. If you have a chart read and you're confused about what your chart is telling you, post it in the room and tell me you're confused. Each post, each picture that's presented by you guys is your opportunity for a private session. So if, for example, Grant, since I see your name last, if Grant goes, hey, Mark, I took this trade, and he goes, man, I came from a good top and I had strong triggers, and I reached this blue Fibonacci area, and I said, I'm going to get in at the area inside of favorable large triggers, and Grant gets run over. Well, then what it does is it opens up the opportunity to discuss termination conditions, something that may be very helpful to Grant to keep him and get him in a position where he can avoid this loser later. Or if he told me, hey, I've got strong triggers, the smalls are below the large, well, then that opens us up for a conversation about what strong triggers really look like. So telling me what you see on the chart allows me to help you refine your ability to read the chart. So guys, don't be stingy with your pictures. You should be taking 15 to 20 pictures a day. And more importantly, you should be writing on them. And more importantly still, they should be going into your spreadsheet. Nexgen gave you this spreadsheet, guys. When you signed on for the demo, when you downloaded software, this went right into your Nexgen Study Picks folder. There is an Excel version, there's an open document version, but the idea is the first page is a trade journal. The first page is where every time you pull the trigger, where you risk simulated money on a trade, you need to take a picture of it. You need to talk about your chart read. The spreadsheet will have you fill out how you felt and what the conditions were. But I believe that the most important thing that you can do, guys, is after you present that trade in class, really take the feedback. If you thought you had strong triggers and I said you don't fight me on it, guys. This is what I do for a living. Write it into your notes. Don't miss this setup. Or maybe it's traded into a termination condition, because what you're going to do is you're going to come back tomorrow and you're going to look at these pictures and you're going to ask yourself what worked. And you're going to find that strength and momentum works, and that clear paths works, and that taking the perfect entry allows you to reduce risk, and it works. And then you're going to find out what didn't work. And that's kind of where this picture comes back in, is you're going to find that when you trade into termination conditions, it's less likely to be a successful trade. And you'll be able to go back and say, hey, wait a minute. Yesterday I traded into termination conditions 5 times. And 4 of those I lost. And that one that didn't lose is the one that you're going to cling to. The one that didn't lose is the one that your brain's going to go, we should do this every time. This is great. But if you go back and you look at these and you ask yourself what worked and what didn't, what was easy, what was forced, you're going to recognize patterns that are bringing you success in the market. You're going to recognize the patterns in the market that are robbing you in that success. But most importantly, you're going to begin to recognize patterns in yourself. You're going to begin to recognize the tendencies that you have. Maybe it's a rule that you break. Maybe it's early entries. Maybe it's early exits. Maybe it's holding on for dear life rather than getting out when the market reaches that likely to go spot. And then when you share them with me, guys, I'm really good at identifying your thing too. So I'll talk to you about it. And I'll say something clever like, hey Ron, I'm going to use Ron. Ron, I noticed that you're fighting the trend, right? And you keep getting run over. Um, maybe take a day and just go with the trend and see how that works out for you, right? And Ron's got a trade that fights the trend, but it's a beautiful trade. Or I say, hey, Joel, I notice that you keep trying to catch every trade, and I don't know what your daily goal is, but what if you had a daily goal of only $200? Do you believe that that might keep you a little more patient? Because you know that it'll be easy to reach it, right? And then Joel may go, oh my gosh, you're right. I am trying to catch every move. I am trying to be in every movement of the market, but the reality is that $200 a day is still $1,000 a week. And man, what a great way to get comfortable with winning. So post in the room, guys, all the time. Post in the room. Tell me what you're doing. Tell me why you're doing it. Show me where you got in. Show me where you got out. And I'm telling you, together, we're going to go full-blown rock star on this one. The first hour, we're going to learn the trigger line and the Fibonacci rules for when it's okay to trade. And it says okay to trade because I want you guys to only have two options. Either your rules are met or your rules are not. This is for brand new users. Remember, we're doing the safety blanket for you. Either your rules are met or they're not, guys. And if you allow that to be your only two options, you're doing a lot of things for yourself. First, you're developing patience. And anything that's 90% chart reading and 10% trading requires patience. You're also teaching yourself to adhere to your rules because your rules provide a statistical advantage. So when you simulate and when you practice, guys, and you're posting those trades, we're going to work together to make sure that you're following your rules. And if you fall outside of those high probability trend trade rules, but it's your trade, make sure you tell me what you're doing, because all I'm going to do is tell you why it's not a high probability trend trade. And if you don't make me search for your advantages, if you tell me why you did what you did, we'll talk about it and dissect it. And man, you may be building a better plan. I can tell you that Ron's crazy counter trade shouldn't work trade gives me a little bit of peace of mind when I'm getting in at the bottom or top. So there's something to learn from everybody, but we don't want you practicing the wrong trades. Initially, we want you focused on speaking to yourself in terms of advantages, making sure that you have the absolute best of the best, giving you the highest chance of success because, confidence comes from the memory of success. I don't know where I read that, but I absolutely love that phrase. We're going to simplify today. We're going to talk about the high probability trend trade, and that's going to turn you into a chart reader. Give me 30 days of study on a high probability trend trade, you will be a chart reader. And then I'm also going to introduce you to what we call a medium probability trade. And all a medium probability trade is, it means that one of your advantages has gone away. So maybe you manage a little aggressively. Maybe you get quick profits. You get to break even quickly. And your ability to chart read is not only going to recognize the challenges that are in your way, but it's also going to allow you to do that management. So we're going to simplify. And guys, I want you taking pictures. I mean, lots of pictures. If I drop a picture in the room, that picture should go into your spreadsheet somewhere. The first page is your tracking. The second is your favorite looks, guys. What's it going to take to get you into the market, right? What does it look like when the trade is absolutely perfect? And did you annotate it so that you could catch it again, so that you can recognize this look and never miss it? And the more you do that, the more you take that picture and you fill this up with the perfect trades, the statistically advantageous trades, you're building your trading plan. And this is where you're going to start finding those patterns that maybe are outside of it. And then recognition comes through repetition, guys. So I've put about 300 pictures of you guys killing it with the software. And this goes back probably a year and a half. The patterns don't change. I've got entry sequences, long and short. I've got management. You adrenaline junkies that want to trade the NASDAQ, I've blown out a lot of accounts for you to recognize some simple little nuances that'll provide extra success for sure. Management. All we talk about for an hour is entry. Guys, management is where the money is made. Understanding when it's appropriate to hold longer, understanding when it's appropriate to jump ship. Once again, from chart reads, There's a whole section about patterns that repeat themselves, whether it's pivot stop outs or three divergences or reading divergence. There's a whole section dedicated to termination conditions, areas where the market is likely to stop. Because that's a really key concept and one of the most broken rules by new users, myself included. This actually used to be called, in a different life, the Mark Novak shouldn't trade here section. And we'll just leave it there. We'll put it back there. But the idea and my hope and my wish and my want for all of you amazing students is that you turn your favorite look section and make it look like the client trade section. Let your pictures flood this thing. Take it to the bottom. Run out of colored spaces. And the more you do this, and then the more you go back and study what it is that you've taken pictures of, what it is that you've done, guys, you will get to where you want to be, and you're going to get there a lot quicker than if you fight the system, because they've got to become easy for you in order to be successful. So we're going to talk about the high probability trend trade first. We're going to talk about a trade that's nothing but advantages. There's only 3 rules to it. Each rule gives you an advantage. When the first rule is true, you have the advantage of momentum. And when the second rule is true, you have the advantage of a clear path. And when the third rule is true, you have the advantage of entering the market where the market is most likely to continue. It's really a pretty simple approach to learning to read your indicators. And that's all this trade's doing for you guys. This trade is boring. It's slow. It's watching Gone with the Wind or reading Love and Peace or War and Peace, whatever. I mean, it drags out and it takes time in between trades. But the reality is this is a trade that typically wins 70 to 80% of the time. And if you could have a job where you click a mouse for 4 or 5 minutes a day and make $1,000 a day, $500 a day, that's a pretty cool job. So we're going to train ourselves to be patient between clicks. Oh, Miss Debbie, have an awesome day. Get out and enjoy the weather. Uh-oh, rain's coming. I just saw it on my computer. We'll enjoy it before the rain comes. Guys, your large chart leads the way. Always. Your large chart tells you whether or not you're even going to look for an entry. Your large chart will define the direction of the market, the momentum of the market, the areas of the market. Uh-oh. All right, guys, I'm back. Can you hear me? We're good? Okay. So if you ever lose me, guys, thank you. Do exactly what Ron did and tell me that you lost sound. A lot of times I've got to use the task manager and shut down Discord, but I'll always be right back, I promise. Are we back? Cab says no sound, guys. All right, so let's double check. Joel, you say we're good. Do me a favor. Give me a Y in the room if you can hear me. It's scratchy. Let me make sure all of my plugins are good, but I haven't adjusted anything. Joel sounds good. I can try and reboot one more time, guys. I certainly don't mind. Hold on just 1 second. It is not a mic malfunction. I refuse to believe that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to reboot one more time and see if we can't make things work out better. All right, I'm back. Well, that's because I exited. I'm back now. Can you guys hear me? I guess if you can't, nobody's going to say anything, huh? Fantastic. Awesome. Let's make sure everybody's on board. I got a fantastic from Joel. Sound better now? So just so you guys know, Bob says no sound. Cav, can you hear me? Joel says fantastic. So let's just do this. Give me a Y if you can hear me. Joel can hear me. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you guys reboot because I've rebooted twice. And Joel can hear me. So some of you can and some of you can't. So if you can hear me, hang out. And we'll see if a couple people jump ship and come back in. Discord was sketchy this morning, and it was hard for me to get in. It took me 4 shots to get in. So I'm not 100% sure that it's me. Okay. Hearing aid working there, Joel? Awesome. And JW, you got me? Okay. So we'll just see. We'll see if everyone else can hear. Because if you guys can hear me, then it can't be my microphone. And if you guys can hear me, then it can't be on my end. So there we go. Maybe they'll get that. You guys that can hear me. I say reboot, but nobody's exiting and coming back. They're just telling me that they can't hear me. I can shut down the whole class and reconnect. That way everybody has to come back. I'll be back in a second. Those of you, don't panic. All right, if I couldn't get him to reboot, I'll just kick him out. And Joe, you're good. Awesome. So we'll let everybody get back in. It's okay. We have to have technical. It's more gooder. I asked everybody to reboot, but nobody left. So I figured I would just kick you all out and you'd have to come back. Sneaky, right? Cav, you're good? Sound is so... Does that mean no sound or yes sound? And I guess if you answer, I get my answer, right? If you don't answer, I know exactly what it was. All right, guys. So true story, if I ever say, hey, reboot, I should see your little picture disappear. You got to get out, get back in. Sometimes Discord is weird, guys. From now on, I'll just disconnect and come back. So if I ever disappear, I'll wait for you guys to get back. And we're going to wait. We'll wait for everybody to get back in here before we get into the rules, because I don't want you guys to miss out on it. I don't want you guys to miss out on advantages. The one thing that I'm going to say, for those of you that are newer, hopefully you're back in and you're talking, or you can hear me, is when we talk about advantages, what I really want you guys to do, and this is such an important part, and you'll catch this on the YouTube video, is I want you to begin speaking to yourself in terms of advantages. So when you look at your chart, I don't want you to say, hey, is there a long trade? Or hey, is there a short trade? What I want you to do is I want you to literally ask yourself, do I have momentum? Do I have a clear path? And do I have an entry area? And the cool thing is if you can say yes to the 3 of those, well, then you have a trade. And if you can't say yes to all 3 of these, well, you still may have a trade, but it won't be a high probability trend trade, which means that you'll have to manage it more assertively. So start talking to yourself in terms of advantages. It's really going to change your game. There's 2 charts to get these 3 rules met. And the first one is the large chart. And the large chart's a slow moving chart, guys. This is the big old, this one's for Rob. This is the big old John Deere in the cornfield, moving slow, chugging along, making things happen. And nobody jumps in front of a John Deere because nothing runs like a deer. So your large chart is it's gonna define direction. It's gonna let you know which way that market is moving. The large chart is going to define the momentum of the market. It's going to let you know whether or not you have the advantage. And then finally, the large chart is going to define the areas that may be problematic. And the large chart is really nothing more than a reflection of what the large crowd wants. The large crowd moves the market. The large crowd gives it a push in whatever direction they want it to go, and the large crowd establishes the momentum of that push, and the large crowd reacts to those key areas on your market. And a simple little idea of never fighting the large chart as a brand new user creates huge dividends, guys. It creates a huge advantage. And then your small chart, guys, this is going to be the small crowd. This is where entries happen. The small chart is going to refine that large chart. That most current bar on the large chart is going to be broken down, and it's going to be refined to the point of entry, to that best of the best spot where the market is most likely to continue. And what that does for you is it reduces risk and it maximizes profit potential. And these three rules happening on two charts is what creates the trade. So this is where some confusion came in yesterday. So I'm gonna make sure that I cover this one pretty well. Let's go back to rule number one real quick. Rule number one says that the large chart needs strong trigger lines. Lines, right, Bob? The large chart needs strong trigger lines. And strong trigger lines can only happen if you're trading with the color. And there was a gentleman that posted in here, and I told him twice because he referenced color. I said it's not the color that we're looking for so much. It's the strong trigger lines. But I mention color because color lets you know which way the market is moving, whether it's going up or down. And guys, there's going to be 1,000 trades out there that don't match the color, but none of them will be high probability. So that's where I wanted to take that and kind of reinforce the rule is if the market is green and going up, the brand new user, the high probability trend trader, should only be looking for rules to be met for high probability trend trades long. And if the background is red, the market's going down, and the high probability trend trade only happens in the direction of the market. So you will find trades beyond this. You will find trades where the colors don't match. But to have strong triggers, to have the first advantage, the only way for that to happen is if the colors are the same as the background. If the colors of your trigger lines, the small trigger lines, the solid line, and the large trigger lines, the dashed lines, these are just moving averages, guys, and they show the strength in the market. And when the small triggers break above the large triggers, when it creates space between the two, you have strong trigger lines. And strong trigger lines mean that the odds are favorable for the market to continue up. When the smalls are below the large, when space is created, the odds are favorable for the market to continue down. So for the high probability trend trade, the only way it can be a high probability trend trade is if the background and the trigger lines match. That's it. However, as you grow with the software, what you're going to find is that even if the triggers don't match, there may be trades that can be taken, but you'll know in your head that it's not high probability because the triggers in the background don't match, and it's going to allow you to manage it a little more assertively. So strength looks like scissors that are open. Smalls above the large, larger wide in the direction of the trend. Flat triggers do not provide momentum. Wide, angled in the direction of the trend, scissors open. And guys, that's your best of the best look. That's rule number one being met. And this is for the high probability trend trader. The high probability trend trader relies on the advantage of momentum because the advantage of momentum pushes a market in the direction of the trend. The advantage of momentum can break those key Fibonacci areas. And the advantage of momentum, guys, it'll even cover some of the mistakes that new users tend to make. And then high probability or odds favorable momentum, that's what we call it. Strong trigger lines. It doesn't typically last all day long. We go from odds favorable, the best of the best. That's where you guys are going to sell Fibonacci resistance on a smaller, faster chart. That's where you guys are going to buy Fibonacci support on a smaller, faster chart. But the market's going to continue down as the market does. And when both triggers are down and one of the small trigger lines gets inside of the large, just one of the lines, this is a visual that the market is slowing. This is letting you know, hey, that odds favorable is decreasing. The scissors are closing. You can still take short trades. But again, I want to stress this a lot, it's not a high probability trend trade anymore because you do not have the separation. You do not have that odds favorable momentum providing you the first advantage. But if all the charts agree, there's still a trade to be taken as you grow with the software. When the small and large, when both lines of the small get inside of the large, this is what we call a weakening. It's a slowing of the trend, and anything can happen up or down. And I want you guys to embrace that because trading is about advantages. Trading isn't about hoping the market does what you want to do. Trading is about your indicators telling you that the market is most likely to do what you're anticipating it to do. It doesn't guarantee it, but at least the advantage is present. So when we get these weaker triggers, these anything can happen triggers, you will get to a point in your trading career where you'll still take a short trade. You'll get to a point in your trading career where you may still take a short trade with this look because your chart reading says that you still have enough advantages to do it. But for the brand new user, anything can happen triggers is typically a death sentence. This is where you guys get run over. When the market gives a stronger retracement, this is where you guys get run over when everything isn't perfect. This is where your entry area typically looks the worst. And also these strong triggers or these weak triggers into support, guys, these can kill a move. These are when areas are more likely to hold, when those triggers are really, really weak. So rule number one says, let's give ourselves strong trigger lines. Strong trigger lines happens all day, off and on. It doesn't happen all day, just one direction typically. But what you'll find is that if you begin to be a little patient, if you begin to really say to yourself, I'm not going to trade without the advantage of of strength. I'm not going to trade without the best of the best trigger lines. It means that when everything is strong, you're looking for those shorts. You're looking to buy Fibonacci resistance on a smaller, faster chart. And then when they become anything can happen, you resolve yourself to sit on your hands, to do nothing, to relax, because you're just not sure what's going to happen anymore. And then when they're strong again, odds favorable momentum, you're going to look to buy Fibonacci support on a smaller, faster chart. On that large chart, it looks like a tail. Remember, it's only one bar giving us all the good stuff. We refine that entry. You guys are going to pinpoint that tail. You're going to look for opportunities. Back to that anything can happen. And there's another reversal in the market. Providing odds favorable, there's a tail. And guys, this is the area where the new user tends to get chewed up. And this is the area where the new user tends to form opinions. And Grant, this is where I talk about the color versus the triggers. And this is where you fall outside of the high probability realm. Odds favorable, they all have to match, right? But if the large are down and the small are up, it doesn't mean that as you grow with the software, there won't be a short trade right here because your large triggers are still down. And it doesn't mean that there may not be a long trade somewhere down here, even though they don't match. What it does mean is that if you're learning to read your indicators and you're learning to really dissect it into advantages, there are no advantages of momentum to be had here, which means that you no longer have a market likely to move in the direction of the trend, which means that it's not a high probability trend trade, which means that it's not a trade that typically wins 70 to 80% of the time, which means that you better be a great chart reader to take advantage of these indecisions, guys. This is where buyers and sellers are just duking it out. Eventually somebody wins and it goes back to odds favorable. And I'll give you guys this picture. I haven't shared it in a while. So rule number one, keeps you focused on the best as a brand new user, that blanket rule. And then once rule number 1 is met, we're going to go to rule number 2. And rule number 2 says don't trade into termination conditions. Don't trade into areas likely to stop the market. Don't trade into something that can reverse the market. Don't trade into an area where decisions are being made by the people that control. Did I put enough doom and gloom in it to make you guys believe that these areas can really pull an advantage? Large chart's going to define it. Large chart defines the areas. These are nothing more than the lines on the chart where decisions are made by the people in charge. These are the areas that you're going to see long before you ever get to them. And these are what we call termination conditions, guys. Termination conditions, 99.9% of the time, are defined by lines on the large chart. The large chart is reacting to them. The large chart may bounce, it may reverse, there may be an untradeable fight. And rule number 2 says don't trade into them. Don't trade into a termination condition. It's a Fibonacci-based indicator that may reverse the market based on a comparison of that area and your T3 trigger line, strength and location. So the same triggers that give you the advantage of momentum are going to define whether or not an area, let me pull up my picture, whether or not an area is likely to stop the market, whether that area has the potential to break, or whether or not that area has broken and offered you up that clear path. And the areas can be blue Fibonacci support and red Fibonacci resistance. It can be yellow 1-to-1 dots, a cyan divergence low line, a magenta divergence high line. It can also be 3 divergences in the same area. This can happen on a large chart, but you'll see it on a small chart first, or a midband with the triggers a full bar away. But let's go through defining the areas that may stop the market, that are likely to stop the market. Everything begins with price reaching the area. And I say that price must reach the area because if it never does, well, then the decision-making process isn't set off. So price reaches an area. Those dynamic Renko bars come down and smack directly into Fibonacci support. And when they do, all you guys have to do is ask yourself, where are my trigger lines? If the trigger lines are above support, don't take any more short trades into that area. It's really pretty simple. If price reaches an area and the triggers remain above support, or of course below resistance, don't trade into it. Sit on your hands. Wait for the reaction. There's 3 things that are going to happen. It's either going to create an untradeable bounce, which costs you money. It's going to reverse the market, which is going to cost you money if you went short. Or it's going to break, in which case you're just going to let it break and then look for your rules to be met. The reality is, and I want you to accept this from day one, is I never know what the market will do. I do, however, have rules that will help keep me out of trouble. And that's what rule number 2 does, guys. It keeps you out of that decision-making process. So if price reaches the area, the triggers don't get below it, just stop. Just wait, pause, go grab a beer, whatever. If both the small and the large triggers get below an area, so here they reach support and all the triggers are above. Eventually, they all get below this area of support. It becomes resistance. Now the area is broken. And because price, the bottom of that bar, hasn't reached support yet, my path is clear. And with all that odds favorable momentum, you guys are going to pinpoint right where that tail is likely to form, and that becomes your entry. Adriana, have an amazing day. I hope work is productive. And I will see you tomorrow. Did you post a chart for me today? If you did, I'll spend a little extra time so I'm thorough, so that when you watch the video, you'll know. And guys, just a hint, when you watch my videos, you can run them at 1.5 times speed so you don't have to sit for 3 hours. But 2 options for the new user. Guys, give me a Y in the room if you're with me. If price reaches an area and none of the triggers break it, don't do anything. Sit on your hands, wait. Let's see what happens. If both the small and the large get to the other side of the area, Go, 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 go if your rules are met. Your path is clear. Enjoy that clear path to get you to the next potential target and enjoy that momentum. So guys, that's the most basic. It either is or it is not, right? Termination conditions are very much like pregnancy. You either are or you are not. And then we get into the gray area. Then we get into the area where all of that momentum gives us the potential to break. And it happens when the small triggers, and I'm going to write the words on here, when the small triggers smash. And 2 to 3 points through. Maybe 4 to 6 on the NASDAQ. When the small triggers smash through an area, but the large triggers lag behind, they haven't made it to the other side yet, guys, this is an area with the potential to break. That support has the potential to not be able to contain all that momentum. That support is really, it may get broken, but you have to pause. There's your pause button. This is what we call a 50-50 look, because 50% of your triggers are through and 50% of your triggers are not. The area is not broken. And more importantly, if the area isn't broken yet, well then rule number 2 isn't true. And the only way for rule number 2 to be true is if you have a clear path. If both the small and the large have gotten to the other side of the area. But the cool thing is that with all that momentum and the potential to break, I'm going to give you a plan that allows you to look for opportunity there. I'm going to give you a plan that is going to help you take advantage of areas with the potential to break, but I'm going to let you in on a secret. If the area is not broken, the path isn't clear. You have forfeited 33% of your advantages that the high probability trend trade provides, which means that you're not going to give up momentum, guys. I'm going to give you a plan that says don't forfeit momentum, because if you do, you're down to 66% of your advantage is gone. And if you don't have the perfect entry area, well then why are you taking the trade in the first place? So not having a clear path, as long as you have momentum in an entry area, guys, there's still a potential trade to be had. And here's the cool thing. Here's your little slide chart. If you get rid of momentum, but you have a clear path in an entry area, well then you can still take a medium probability trade. And you're absolutely right. If the entry area isn't the best, but you have momentum and a clear path, well then you could still potentially take a medium probability trade. But the reality is that it'll never be a high probability trend trade, which means it's not a trade that wins 70 to 80% of the time, which means that it isn't your best chance of success. So it's okay to skip it as a brand new user. Is everybody cool with that simple recipe? Price reaches an area. If the trigger lines don't get through it, this market is grinding up, isn't it? Whoops. Let's go look for just a let's do a little recap. Price breaks resistance and resistance behaves as support and off it goes to the upside. There's those tails with strong triggers without an area being reached. A lot of money to be made there. Money to be made down here. Notice that the large triggers never broke. Notice that there isn't separation between the small and large. Weak triggers, there's a big bounce. Directly into a fib, even with strong triggers, there's a big bounce. Can't make it through, pushes down, pulls right back to resistance, and down it goes. Guys, look at this. Reached a divergence low to the tick. You knew about it for an hour. And that's what set the market off. Smalls made it through, but the large didn't. The area never broke. Weak triggers back into the area, it's more likely to hold. Guys, there is a metric ton of information to be had from a market that isn't moving. There is so much information to be had without even taking a trade. I have odds favorable momentum. I have a clear path to get to support. We'll come back. We're going to talk about entries right now. Let's see if that turns into a tail. And if it does, let's see where it ends up on a smaller, faster chart just for grins. But before we do that, Let's go through termination conditions a little more. Guys, I'm showing you that because I want you to start taking pictures of these things. I want you to go back and take pictures. If you're brand new, give me 10 pictures of termination conditions. Put them into your spreadsheet. Take 10 pictures of strong triggers. Put them into your spreadsheet. You will be able to see them when the market is moving live. Price reaches resistance, no triggers break, no trade, right? No longs. Pulls all the way back to support. No triggers through, no shorts. 90% of your day is reading indicators. Large triggers don't even follow when you hit this area. Guys, this is your look for when mid-band is likely to stop the market, for when fibs say absolutely no more shorts. When there's a gap that is a full bar wide, a full bar to get back to those large triggers, the market is more likely to hit those triggers than not, which means that if you try a short trade right here, try to beat the system into the area, you're going to get run over more often than not. When price reached resistance, the market created a divergence high. And I want you to see this. The market came up and the market came down. Right about the third bar, this divergence told me, this negative number, this magenta line said, hey, Mark, guess what? The sellers stole some momentum from the buyers. It's not a termination condition. A divergence pivot is nothing more than a loss of momentum. When price reaches that divergence high line and the triggers remain below, if it trades above it a little bit and comes back below, now it's what we call a pivot stop out. Guys, you're going to see pivot stop outs on the large chart. Pivot stop outs are termination conditions. When pivot stop outs coincide with Fibonacci resistance or support, when it's true, that it adds power to the top, guys. So this is just a pivot with a loss of momentum. Now it's a pivot stop out. Now it's a termination condition. When it coincides with fibs, yellow 1-to-1s, it adds power to the top. This termination condition ultimately reverses the market. It gives me odds favorable momentum, and there's also a clear path now. That little tail represents where you guys are going to pinpoint, where you're going to sell high at Fibonacci resistance and take advantage of what we call a strong top. And a strong top is a no triggers through termination condition that reverses the market, which is why it's so important that you understand the recipe for termination conditions in order to identify your strong tops and bottoms. A strong top sets you up for the highest probability trend trade you could ever take. A strong top is what makes those 50-50 trades more likely to work. A strong top is what creates the advantage for those momentum trades that you guys are looking for. Strong tops and bottoms, guys, they are absolutely outstanding, because what it means is that a decision so powerful was made that it reversed the market and gave you your rules met. And you're going to see it, strong tops and bottoms, throughout the day. A strong top or a strong bottom. Let's go back one. This is a termination. The market reverses. This is a strong top. But it's only effective until you reach a termination condition. And at this point, you can't go short just because you had a strong top. You can't go breaking rules all willy-nilly because of what happened here. And this is actually a termination that reverses the market. And that strong bottom is awesome right up to the next termination condition. So you have to have a strong top, but you also have to have rules met. And that's what's going to set the tone, guys. So one more picture. Price reaches support, the triggers don't break, no short trades. Price bounces all the way to resistance, the triggers are below it, no long trades. The trigger lines don't match as the market goes back down. I'm not going short. Back to resistance, the triggers are below. I'm not going long. I'm not going short. I'm not going long. There's that huge gap. Guys, this is about 45 minutes of nonsense. 45 minutes of absolutely nothing giving you an advantage. If you learn to stay patient during this 45 minutes, ultimately, the no triggers termination reverses the market, providing a strong bottom, giving you odds favorable with a clear path, and you can pinpoint where the market is likely to continue. You can buy low at Fibonacci support. Doing absolutely nothing when there is nothing to do sets off some of the best advantages ever. And then sometimes, and let's ask, is everybody cool with termination conditions? Is everybody okay with the idea that that was that news? Guys, there was the circle, there was the momentum, and there's your pivot stop out at support in yellow 1-to-1s. And look at the reaction. Even during an emotional news release, strong triggers break the areas. Weak triggers provide a retracement directly to the midband. Large triggers are a full bar away. We're not going short. Super weak triggers, not even at an area. That's what sets off the down. Strong triggers break an area again. We're getting every freaking lesson in a 5-minute span on the Russell here. If you don't believe that trigger lines make, or that termination conditions make a difference, guys, this was during an emotional news response, and the market still reacted to it. The market still bounced like it just didn't even know what to do. So a little bit of patience goes a long way. One more termination condition, guys. 3 divergences in the same price range may terminate the trend. 3 losses of momentum in the same price range may terminate the trend. 3 magenta lines from a high, 3 cyan lines from a low may terminate the trend. May. But 3 divergences in the same price range, man, I keep losing my Ninja Trader. 3 divergences in the same price range is a termination condition. 3 divergences in the same price range means that rule number 2 is not met. So whether it's a small chart, whether it's a large chart, whether you see it on a range chart or a tick chart, or whether you see it on a minute chart or a month chart, 3 divergences in the same price range may terminate the trend. But you're going to see it first on a smaller, faster chart. You're actually going to see these 3 divergences on your entry chart before you ever see them on a large chart. And these 3 divergences on your smaller, faster chart are the only termination condition that I give any respect on a smaller, faster chart because it may terminate the trend. You're going to see this at a low or this at a high times when the large chart moving too slow can't show you that it wants to change direction. It can't tell you that there's odds favorable momentum and a clear path isn't going to work. But if you see this, where did it go? On the smaller, faster chart, you know not to take that last long trade. You know not to take that last short trade. And this is the only termination condition that is going to tell me that rule number 2 isn't true, that I don't have a clear path. And they become more powerful with anything can happen triggers. They become more powerful when the 3rd divergence is higher than the 2nd. That's a head and shoulders. It's very powerful. If the 3rd divergence is lower than the previous, it's a head and shoulders. It's very powerful. So just 3, termination, rules not met. 3 with anything can happen triggers, more powerful. Head and shoulders, more powerful still, guys. And that just lets you know that the rules aren't met, that rule number 2 isn't in place, that the path isn't clear, that you are willingly and knowfully, is that a word? It should be. Knowingly, forfeiting one of your advantages. And if you're a brand new user, that creates challenges. So we have strong triggers on the large chart. Termination conditions are false on the large chart, guys. Rules 1 and 2 have been met so far. Now we're going to go to rule number 3. Now we're going to go to that refinement process, and we're going to use a limit order. This means that you are going to literally wait for the market to come to you. We're so stinking good at what we do that when the large chart's going up, we're going to buy it as the small chart's coming down. And as a large chart's going down, we're literally going to sell it as the small chart is going up. We're going to use a limit order to buy or sell a pullback. That little shove in price that's created by the small crowd versus the large crowd, this retracement, this 10 or 12 bars, is the pullback that we're going to take advantage of. And we are going to buy or sell a pullback at areas, fibs, midbands, yellow 1-to-1s. On the large chart, areas are trouble. Areas are where bad things happen. On the small chart, areas are a bounce point. They allow you to get into the market with precision. Fibs, midbands, yellow 1-to-1s. And the key to these is that those areas are inside of what we call favorable large triggers. Large triggers, small triggers, they're moving averages. And your large triggers are just native to the 5-1 chart, to your small chart. The large triggers are the same thing that we use to gauge momentum. You also have on your small chart synthetic triggers, and synthetic triggers just mean the large triggers from the large chart. And let me see if I can minimize this real quick, or let me just get it out of the way. I'm going to show you the relationship real quick. Close all windows. Here we go. Your large triggers on the large chart are the synthetic triggers. You can see how the box around the large wraps around the box on the small. When we superimpose these trigger lines over to the small chart, it gives us the opportunity to have what we call favorable large triggers when they are trending one on top of the other, like two snakes riding piggyback. What that does for you guys is it gives you the smallest possible window of opportunity. It gives you the least amount of space where the market is likely to continue. This is going to give you the least amount of risk as you go into trades, and this is going to get you to the point to where you're going to pinpoint with pretty amazing accuracy where the market is most likely to continue. And that happens on the small chart. That happens on that refinement chart. So favorable large triggers, and let's say it all in one big breath. Rule number 3 says that we are going to use a limit order to buy or sell a pullback at an area inside of favorable large triggers. I want you to use that language as you are annotating your charts, as you're writing on your charts why you got into the market, because rule number 3, guys, there's a lot of misconceptions about it, and I'll talk about what they are as we get into the entry rules. But rule number 3 happens on the small chart. It refines the broad stroke of the brush. So when everything is up on the large chart, Nexgen users buy low on a smaller, faster chart at Fibonacci support. And when everything is down on the large chart, Nexgen users sell high at Fibonacci resistance on a smaller, faster chart. And we can do that through the 2-chart refinement process. And the 2-chart refinement process, guys, this one bar on the large chart, it's just one bar. It's going to define direction. It's going to define momentum. It's going to define areas. It's going to give you really everything you need to look for an entry. The bottom of the most current bar should be the beginning of your pullback, that little retracement counter to everything that the large chart says. That tail that I said you guys are going to be able to pinpoint should be an area of resistance inside of favorable large triggers. And you're going to get 15 to 30 bars over here in the one movement. It's an X-ray. So the market is going to start at the low of the bar on the small chart, and hopefully it finishes at an area of resistance inside of triggers, which is going to look like a tail when everything is said and done, because 70 to 80% of the time that market is going to move down and continue in the direction, and eventually the next bar gets formed on the large chart. So the objective is to sell high. It allows you to reduce risk. It increases profit potential. And I'm going to go to the client trade section on the spreadsheet, and before we look at a couple pictures, we're just going to go through an entry together. Rules must be met on the large chart. Strong triggers, clear path. And then we wait for a reversal bar on the small chart. When the rules are met, we wait for a reversal bar. We wait for the signal of the pullback. So the first misconception for new users, we don't sell the reversal bar. We don't hit sell when that reversal bar prints. This is only telling us to go through the process of finding our best entry. You'll notice that this pullback happens right at the triggers. And that's going to be the second misconception. We do identify the triggers. The tighter they are, the better it is. But we only identify the triggers so that we can look for the areas within, so we can define where the market is most likely to continue. And this is our window of opportunity. This is where the market is likely to continue. This is the best of the best, guys. This is the precision that this methodology provides. At the time of the reversal bar, I'm going to identify my triggers, and from the bottom line of the triggers to the top line of the triggers. So the wider that they are from one another, the bigger the range where areas may reside becomes. Once I find the trigger lines, from the lowest point of resistance, which happens to be Fibonacci resistance, to the highest point of resistance, which happens to be Fibonacci a mid-band, this identifies my window of opportunity. This shows me where the market is most likely to continue. This is the point where I'm going to take a limit order and I'm going to put it, and this is very important language, 1 to 2 ticks below the window of opportunity, 1 to 2 ticks below that lowest point of resistance. And guys, this becomes even more important if your lowest area is a mid-band, because the mid-band is a moving average, and moving averages will continue down. So if you have a limit order right below it, right on that mid-band, by the time the pullback gets there, I want you to see where the mid-band is as the market pulls up. That mid-band's gone down 2 points or 2 ticks. So 1 to 2 ticks below the lowest point of resistance, and then pray if you're the praying sort. Hope that that small crowd, hope that those yahoos that fight direction, that fight momentum, that don't care that they have a clear path, hope that they can give you a shove back to your entry point, back to the area or to your limit order, waiting at the area. And if they do, if they can create that push, well, now you're in a short trade. You're in a short trade with the advantage of momentum. You're in a short trade with the advantage of a clear path. And you're in a short trade having entered where the market is most likely to continue. So let's go back to, before we move on, I want to go back to that one that we circled live. And this is crude oil. Let me go to the RTY real quick, to the Russell. But I want to go back to that one that we circled live in the market. And I want you guys to see something pretty cool. Where did it go? It was this circle right here, I believe. But I had to reboot. So does everybody remember when I said, hey, let's see if a tail forms, and then let's see what the tail looks like when it does? I want you guys to check this out. Rule number 1 says that I must have odds favorable momentum. Can you guys give me a Y in the room if you see it? I'm going to take off the cheater circle because we're going to go through an entry together. Rule number 1 says I must have odds favorable momentum. I do. There's still separation between the small and the large. Rule number 1 also says that I must have a clear path, meaning that price has not reached Fibonacci support. So it's real important, guys, right now that you give me a Y if you're working on your entries. Tell me, Mark, I see the momentum. I see the clear path. Because if you don't, then I want to have a conversation with you. I want to go back and I want to reinforce a couple of rules. Because this is really an important part of what we do, guys. The advantage of momentum is awesome. Once these rules are met, I have to turn my attention to the smaller, faster chart. And there's a lot of things happening, a lot of emotions. You've watched the market go down and you're afraid that you're not going to make any money. You've watched the market go down and you're thinking, man, how am I going to make a living doing this if it never does what Mark says it's going to do? And you watch it do this little fluctuation and you're like, son of a gun, I'm still not getting paid. And right about here is where I see you guys jump into the market. Right about here is where I see every one of you go, gosh, I mean, there's only 5 ticks to the fib, but I'm going to jump in because I really feel like this train's going without me. I'm really afraid that this market isn't going to do what patterns say it does so many times. And this becomes the entry that I see for a lot of people. It does have momentum, but it doesn't have any room to make money. And then right after you get in, there's a reversal bar, and you guys go, son of a gun. I should have been patient. Son of a gun, here it comes. And at the time of the reversal bar, the only job that the Nexgen user has is to look from the lowest point to the highest point of the triggers. And that's what that yellow box. And notice that the reversal bar is already inside of the triggers? That the reversal bar has already reached that correction point. These triggers are moving averages. These triggers are where we anticipate the market to come back to. But without giving it something solid to bounce off of, price is likely to zoom right through. So at the reversal bar, I identify the triggers. And I go from my lowest point of resistance, which happens to be these yellow 1-to-1s, to my highest point of resistance, which is this midband right at the very top. And my job as a high probability trend trader is to activate a limit order a tick or two below that lowest point of resistance. And if the market comes back and hits it, I'm going to short trade at 2120.4, which means that I have about $150 worth of profit to get to the fib from here. And then the market continues up, and this is terrifying for new users. I'm 3 bars in, and the market's going against me, but I want you to look left. Guys, do I still have odds favorable momentum? Do I still have a clear path? This is important because this is going to help you overcome a couple fears. The answer is yes. Nothing has changed on the large chart. And then you have to ask yourself, am I still in the window of opportunity? And the answer is yes, it most certainly is. And it goes to the top of the window of opportunity. And a lot of you guys are like, son of a biscuit. I'm down $60 a contract. And I think I'm just going to get out of this trade. I'm going to exit. I'm going to get out of this trade right here because I can't stand the heat. I'm going to get out of this trade right at the area of resistance inside of favorable large triggers, which is where I know is where this trade can happen. Oh man, I just exited and now it's doing exactly what it said it would do. It pulled right back to resistance inside of favorable large triggers. Granted, it was the top end, not the bottom end. And all of you guys that trust your rules rode that wave of momentum, maybe to the fib, maybe even beyond. But you can go back and study this. Look where the tail formed, guys. Look at where that tail happened. Right at the area of resistance inside of favorable large triggers. So I don't trade the tail. I trade the pullback to resistance inside of favorable large triggers. And guys, this is how you can go back and study. Every time you have odds favorable momentum and a clear path, circle a tail. Every time you have odds favorable momentum and a clear path, notice that we had to be a little patient, circle a tail. And I'm just scrolling through. That's odds favorable momentum and a clear path. I'm going to see if there was an opportunity. And the market goes up, and there's that 50-50. And this is where we're sitting right now, guys. We're sitting right now with the large triggers up and the small triggers down. If I scroll back and find that circle, look at the split in the triggers, guys. That's not favorable large triggers. That's not your best entry. And it's okay to say to yourself, that's not my trade, because my synthetics are flat and my large are way down here. And it's just not my best look. It's not my highest probability look. And it's okay. The market goes down a little bit and then it goes up. And you say to yourself, I do have odds favorable momentum, but the path isn't clear. My smalls are above, but the large are not. And once again, my triggers are split. The large are way up here and the synthetics are way down here, which means I don't know where the market is going to correct to. So it's still not the perfect look. And then we kind of come into it, and this is where we're at right now. And we're just waiting to see if we can get rules met. Once again, the trigger lines are split. And guys, I'm not saying that there won't be trades with split trigger lines. I'm saying that your advantage goes away. Your risk is increased when those trigger lines are split. Was that 916? the triggers are split, it's not the best, and I think that was right at news. But if I take that circle and come back a little bit, do you see how all I'm doing is seeing if I missed an opportunity? That one hit support. 3 divergences might have taken me out. I'm just waiting for the best of the best, guys. I'm just waiting for the opportunities to arise so I can capitalize. So if you go back every day and you circle tails, it's going to help you with recognition. If you go back and circle tails, it's going to help you see it when it's not moving so that you can catch these trades when the market is moving. And then I'm going to give you something right now to help you identify and give you something solid to work with. Guys, you have to have a trading plan. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to know why you're getting into the trade that you're getting into so that you know whether or not it's high probability, so you know whether or not it's low probability. And let me give you one more slide real quick before we get into that. Whoops, man, I just went crazy. Sorry if any of you... My apologies on that. I'm trying to get it here. Sorry. I went full disco on you. And this is where I was going, is you can understand where the market is most likely to continue through rule number 3, which means that you know where the market shouldn't go. Because if it goes beyond that window of opportunity, guys, it's not a high probability trend trade anymore, and you may not want to stay in it as a brand new user. So generally 4 or 5 ticks above the trigger lines, below the trigger lines, 4 or 5 ticks beyond the window of opportunity. Guys, this is where your initial stop goes. And I'm going to tell you right now that this says trigger lines because trigger lines are the correction point. The safest stop is always outside of the trigger lines, beyond the trigger line. So if they're split, your stop may be huge. But if they're very one on top of the other, it's pretty easy to manage. So knowing where the market should go allows you to know where the market shouldn't go. This is your initial stop, guys, and your initial stop is going to get hit. Every 10 trades you take, it's probably going to get hit 3 times because anything that wins 70 to 80% of the time is obligated to lose 20 to 30. But if you adhere to this rule, your stops or your losses are probably going to be less than your winners. And even more so, once the market gives a reversal bar in the direction of your trade, you can reduce your risk even further, a tick or 2 or above. And this gives you this amazing advantage, and I see this a lot with you guys, where you get the reversal bar and you move your stop accordingly, and the trade doesn't work, guys, and trades don't work all the time. It's just a matter of advantages. And losses are a normal part of a positive equity curve. But isn't a 2 to 3 tick loser so much better than a 20 to 30 tick loser or a 12 to 14 tick loser? So we can keep our losses small, we can keep our wins bigger, and we can do that by understanding where the market is most likely to continue, by recognizing that the trade is beginning to do what the trade does, and by really giving ourselves the advantage of being amazing chart readers and being able to get in at the right spots, because great entries create manageable trades. And my Ninja Trader is giving me absolute fits today. So I'm going to give you guys a plan that allows you to get into the market at the best spot. This is a solid plan that is a stepping stone in your learning journey. This is a solid plan that's designed to optimize your chances of success with the high probability trend trade or that 50-50 trade, guys. And it starts with never fighting the large chart, whether it's direction or momentum or into those areas. Just don't fight the large chart as a brand new user. It's going to increase your chances of success. You have to define your entry. And I think a lot of people skip this step. They don't define their entry. It's not clear to them. They know that triggers are involved, but maybe they trade from the triggers instead of the area. They know that the large have to be down, but they forget that separation between the large and the small creates momentum. They know that they shouldn't trade into an area, And they say, but if the price bar gets a little bit above it, well, then that area must be broken. And the reality is that the triggers define the termination conditions. So the new users really begin to trade in terms of half-truths if they don't pay attention to the rules and what they mean. If you don't go back and annotate, right? If you don't annotate what a termination condition looks like, if you don't annotate what a 50-50 means, right? This from my spreadsheet says termination conditions, which means that price reaches resistance and none of the triggers break, but it also means that price reaches support and none of the triggers break. So if price reaches this fib and you're thinking, man, 50-50 trade, then you might take the entry directly into Fibonacci support. So new users tend to speak to themselves in terms of half-truths. This KISS trading plan keeps you focused on the best, and it identifies through pictures what each entry condition looks like, and it defines your window of opportunity. And guys, I've never had anybody use this checklist, and I'm going to give you an actual physical checklist to print out. I've never had anybody use this checklist and do worse than 70% ever in the history of the checklist. So I just dropped the KISS trading plan in there, and I just dropped this checklist into the room for you. And I'm going to give you the same checklist with the pictures of what it means to have the conditions met. What it means to have a no triggers through termination that reverses the market, that strong top or bottom. What it means to have momentum, and even more importantly, what it means to watch that momentum go away. Whether an area is a termination condition, whether it's a clear path, and what it looks like when it has the potential to break. And the key to the 50-50, guys, is that this bar can't reach the next area. Otherwise, you're into the next termination condition. And then finally, your windows of opportunity. So all three of those just got put in the room. And all it is designed to get you in at the right spot. And if you give me 20 days of study, 20 days of 20 pictures a day of momentum and terminations and windows of opportunity, 20 days of annotating your charts and really drilling into your brain what these advantages look like, you're going to be able to get into the market where it's most likely to continue. And then once you do that, you have to manage it. But let me read the rest of this up here, guys. This trading plan, this KISS plan, is not the end of the road for any of you. This KISS plan is a stepping stone in your learning journey. This KISS plan is teaching you to become a chart reader. And through simulation, through study, through class feedback, continuous practice, right? You're going to have to work a little bit to make $1 million a year. You'll be empowered to craft a plan tailored to your personal goals based on your experience reading the indicators. I love that phrase because it means when you're a chart reader, guys, doors open. When you're a chart reader, more opportunities come into play. When you're a chart reader, you're able to manage more aggressively. But until you're a chart reader, your management should be just as mechanical, just as focused as your entries. And then there's the magic phrase again. You will create a plan tailored to your personal goals based on your ability to read the indicators. Your management plan will change dramatically from this very boring, if-then pragmatic, opinionless approach that I'm giving you. But I'm going to tell you right now that this is a pretty solid plan because it revolves around your ability to get in where the market is most likely to continue. So if you haven't figured that one out yet, your trades will become more difficult to manage. And you'll hear me ask in the room a lot, so where was your stop? Where was your stop when you entered this trade all the way down here, not at the best spot? Where was your stop? Because it has to go where the market shouldn't. And if you're not nailing your entries, that risk goes up dramatically. So this is the first part of management, is great entries. The second part is putting your stop where the market shouldn't go. And guys, if it hits that stop, it's a cost of doing business. It's a normal part of a positive equity curve. I don't want you to associate losses with failure. I want you to focus on your execution more than the results, and the results will follow. But if the market gives you that reversal bar in the direction of the trade, you're going to move your stop. You're going to go from 15, 16 ticks down to maybe 7 or 8. You may cut your risk in half. And at this point, there's nothing to do. You're either going to stop, you get stopped out at your new stop, smaller losses, no worries, I'm cool with that. or it's going to get to your first target. Your first target is only $100 in the distance, guys. Because when you have the advantage of momentum, when you have a clear path, when you enter the market where it's most likely to continue, guys, $100 is easy to reach. And when you hit $100, it feels good. When you hit $100, your palms stop sweating. Your heart stops trying to pound out of your chest. When you reach $100, you're going to move your stop to break even. You're going to take all the risk off of that trade. So not only are you a winner, right? Children will sing songs about you. Men will want to be you and women will want to be with you, guys. And the opposite for the ladies is true, right? But guys, this feels good. This feels like victory. And with absolutely no risk, you're going to develop trust in that large chart's momentum. You're going to develop trust in that large chart's clear path because you're going to have nothing to risk and everything to gain. And it's either going to stop you out break even, which is going to happen, guys, but you're still $100 better off, or it's going to hit that second target with all that momentum. It's going to hit that second target with that clear path. And the second target's only $200 in the distance, which means that you just collected $300 on the highest probability trend trade. And it's this management, right? Getting in where it should continue, putting stops where it shouldn't go, collecting your money and getting paid, because that's really the goal, isn't it? That's what's going to set you up, guys. This very pragmatic management and developing the ability to read your charts is what's going to get you in at the right spot and have you saying to yourself, I still have odds favorable momentum in this trade, and I have absolutely nothing in the way. Why don't I turn this $300 trade into a $700 trade? Why don't I turn this $300 trade into a $1,000 trade or a $500 trade or something like that? And what it does for you is your ability to read the charts begins to recognize these advantages. It begins to recognize when it really is okay to hold for bigger moves, when it is okay to go for that second target, to really get the most out of these great entries. And management is the second half of what we do, guys. Management should be very mechanical and very pragmatic, and management should be opinionless and emotionless in the beginning as you learn to take these great entries. Whoops, I'm not sure what I just did there. And that's kind of what we're working on in the beginning, guys, is we're working on getting into the market. We're working on management. We're working on understanding where the market is likely to continue so that we can take advantage of it. And this is where I ask you guys, does anybody have any questions about high probability trend trades? And this is your first trade, is the high probability. Your second trade is going to be that area with the potential to break trade. Your second trade is going to be that trade that says, that the area is not broken, that the path isn't clear. Your second trade is going to be, and let me use this slide ruler thing that I make. I love this. When you don't have a clear path. So if I don't have a clear path and I'm getting into a trade, it's so important that I don't give up momentum, right? There's no reason ever. And let me write this at the top. Let me put it in all caps. Whoops, let me hit the wrong button and then go back to the editor. There are 100% of advantages for the high probability trend trade. If you lose one, you're at 66%. And guys, I want you to think about that. There's only 3 rules. You're at 60% of your advantages if you lose one. If one is gone, it's a medium probability trade. If 2 is gone, you are sitting on only 33% of the goodness. Is it really a trade? For the new users, guys, I want you to say to yourself, no, it's probably not really a trade if I've given up that much. So when the clear path is gone, this KISS plan, this very simple plan, this one that's designed to optimize your chances of success, is designed to give you the best of the absolute best way to take the 50-50 trade, because this is one of the most lost trades because people deviate from this very simple plan. The first thing is that you can't give up momentum. So the large chart must have momentum, the small chart must have momentum, and the small chart must have no loss of momentum in the form of divergence. The most broken rule. Well, it was only one divergence. Well, I know it had a couple divergences, but I really wanted it to go. And then here's the second part that's so important for new users, is that it's coming from a good top or bottom, that it's coming from an area that reversed the market. And if it's all yeses, enter at the area, guys. Use the same high probability trend trade rules for getting in where the market is most likely to continue. But here's the key. Watch this. If divergence trades, or if divergence prints, don't take the trade. That's the second reference to divergence for the new user. That is 2 times that the KISS plan tells you divergence sucks for 50-50s. And then you're going to have to manage it. You're going to have to manage it. And let me do this. It's not a high probability trend trade. The management will be different. You have to know what you're getting into to know how to manage. And I want that to resonate with you guys a little bit. You have to know what kind of trade you're getting into so you know how to manage it. So the initial stop is the same, where the market shouldn't go. The first stop movement, 2 ticks above or below, that's the same as the high probability trend trade. But I want you to see this. There is the third reference to divergence killing your chances of success. You 50-50 traders that keep losing them, I want you to pay attention to what I'm talking about here. Your first contract comes off at the trouble spot or $100, whichever is first, which means that it may be a $60 first contract. And you're going to go to break even because honestly, the area hasn't broken. And then 200 on the second. Guys, medium probability trades aren't designed to be home runs. You'll change it up as you get more comfortable, but in the beginning, this is your best chance of success. So all of the trades, all of the rules for the high probability trend trade are in the medium probability trade scenario. All of the rules for the 50-50 are in that KISS plan, guys. I've dropped them in the room. And not only have I dropped those in the room, I'm going to give you this as well, guys. The slideshow that I work off of, I just put the PowerPoint in the room for you. So now you have every picture that I ever share. The key is having a foundation. The key is having a foundation. The key is understanding the basics so that you can grow from it. So as we get into the second hour, or the second half, as I begin to look at more experienced traders' charts, new users, I want you to avoid the temptation to play the role of the trade police. Everybody has rules. You have to have your rules, and your rules may not be my rules. And my rules may not be Pedro's rules, and Pedro's rules may not be Roku's rules. And it doesn't make any of it wrong. But you have to learn the basic rules, that blanket of very conservative rules, so that you can learn when to break rules, so that you can understand when it's appropriate to take some challenges. I'm going to pull up my crude oil real quick. And then, guys, that's my first hour. You're not in control. The large chart is in control. This shark is in control. He has all the money. Be a remora. Take advantages of the advantages that he provides. Take a lot of pictures. So as we come into the second hour, son of a gun, as we come into the second hour, guys, I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about your trades. And we're going to talk about your trades in nothing more than the terms of advantages that the rules provide. We're going to talk about whether or not you had high probability trend trade. We're going to talk about whether or not it was momentum, whether or not it was a clear path, whether or not it was an entry area. So this is where it's so important for you guys to write your rules on the chart, to tell me what it is that you see, so we can talk about advantages and we can make sure that we can identify challenges, or we can identify the things that are robbing you of success, or maybe increasing your risk, or maybe reducing your profits. And we're going to work together hand in hand to do that. But everything revolves around these. But I'm going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to stretch my legs. And when I come back, we'll get into that. And then Rob, when I come back, we're going to talk about 50-50 looks a little bit, and we're also going to talk about pivot stop outs. We're going to work those lessons into the afternoon as well. I don't know what's going on with my NinjaTrader today, guys. I've had one crash in 2 weeks, and I've had 5 crashes today. So clearly something is going on with it. I'm not sure what it is. I probably need to rebuild. So as those charts populate, yeah, oh my gosh, I broke my indicators. I'm going to leave you guys looking at this picture. I apologize for that. I'm going to try to fix my NinjaTrader. And hopefully we can do a little live market stuff this afternoon. Technical difficulties happen, guys. They happen all the time. They're never a reason to panic. I'll see you guys in 5 minutes. When I come back, we'll put some work in. So I'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to work. I'm going to scroll up to the very top of the chat box. We're going to get to the beginning of the day, and we're going to just start clicking on charts and going through them and talking about them and seeing what's up. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on like 4 of them, and we'll just start at the beginning. So Joel got us going this morning, and we're going to see what Joel says about the world. Joel says everything is up, and the triggers are strong, small and large, both cleared. And Joel says, man, when that happens, 2 divergences doesn't scare me. I'll take a pullback to support inside of favorable large triggers, and I'll get paid. And Joel, that is outstanding. What a great look, great momentum, great trade, great entry, fantastic result. You knew exactly where the market was likely to go. Wonderful. And then once again, let's see what we had here. This one's a little harder to read. Strong trend, 758, 758. That just doesn't even look right. Multiple divergences, and Joel, you get in on the wrong side of everything. It is a strong trend. It's not an area inside of favorable large triggers. That's a long trade against direction on the wrong side of synthetics. The large triggers are against you. And I understand why you did it, because of the strong trend going up. One of the safer entries for something like this, Joel, is get at least to the correct side of the large triggers and look for one of these little spike backs when the smalls are strong in the direction. It'll help quite a bit. It really will. It'll take a lot of the stress out of it for you. And then Bob, let's see what we did. That is definitely a loss of momentum. Well played. And then you do have odds favorable momentum. I dig it. And it is a 50-50. Small triggers break on the way back. Everything is strong. And then Bob, you missed the best entry. 1 divergence on a 50-50 is a tough look. Can we agree that 1 divergence on a 50-50 is problematic? 2 divergences makes it even more problematic, especially if it's not coming from a good top. So the best entry with 1 divergence, Bob, is Rockstar. It gets you in at 0675. Your first trouble area is 0275, which is really 4 points, $200 off in the distance. And you could be out of this trade before the trouble even happens. Does that make sense? And guys, this is where repetition pays huge dividends. Is Bob, your large chart read is great. The momentum is there. Everything is cruising. Life is good. And you have to be aware, and I don't know what the market did from here. It may have continued down. But I'm obligated to point out that 2 divergences against a 50-50 from a bad top is more likely to lose than it is to win, which means that it doesn't provide a statistical advantage no matter what it does. Does that make sense, Bob? And this is the hard part, because Bob's like, well, it went down. But how often is it likely to go down against 2 divergences? And this is a great lesson, because this is the picture that I believe is the most damaging picture that anyone could ever take. Well, I didn't have, let's see if we can find a picture. I didn't have odds favorable momentum, and I didn't have a clear path, and I was fighting momentum, and everything said down, but I really hoped that the mid-band would hold, and look, I made money, right? Even though my rules weren't met, I took the trade, and I made money, so it's got to be the right thing to do. It's got to be right. It's got to be okay to fight 2 divergences on a 50-50. And Bob, I know that you took the picture just to see what happened, and I think it's important to do that, but it's also very important to remind yourselves that the idea, and this, Bob, this isn't just for you, trust me on this. This is not just for you. That the idea is that every time you risk your money on a trade, you have a statistical advantage. Every time you're willing to put your kid's college fund, to put your wife's necklace money on there, right? That it's a look that's more likely to win than it loses. Otherwise, we're just gambling, guys, and you may as well go to Vegas and bet on red on the roulette. And I hope that makes sense. All right, Gino and your tiny pictures. I sent Cam a message this morning, Gino. I was like, I want you on the phone with Gino. Let's get this fixed. And I love the annotation on this. I'm not going to lie. The annotation on this makes me smile. And I'm going to talk about it. Pissed to have missed this. It's easy for me to say where I'm sitting, Gino, but don't waste your energy being pissed about missing trades. Go through it. Did I have momentum? Did I have a clear path? And did it get to my entry area, right? And if it did and you missed it, then we just go through and we analyze it. Why did I miss it? What did I do that didn't work? Your large chart's perfect, my friend. Absolutely perfect. Divergence doesn't scare me. The PTM, that's the PTM, pissed to have missed. And then the window of opportunity is rock solid, isn't it? From the mid band down to support. I mean, Gino, everything's perfect, brother. It doesn't get any better than that. And if you were listening during the entry rules, it was designed specifically for you. Because I'm a victim of this as well. I'm the victim here, not me. It's anybody else's fault. The mid-band is a moving average. So when you placed your order a couple ticks above it, and I know that you did because I've seen your entries, that asshole came up another 4 ticks. And it's okay to adjust your entry. It's okay to keep that that entry moving up or down, and you'll see it a lot. Like if I'm looking for a short or a short trade, and I'll just do it like this, or a long trade, and the mid band is coming up, I may have to keep adjusting this as the mid band comes up, right? I might have to move my entry 4 or 5 times before the market ever gets back to it, because that thing keeps moving up on me. And I think that's what got you on this one. And man, the PTM is cool, but when you start getting upset about missing stuff, that's when I find myself fabricating things. So you read it perfect. You had the right thing, and you just have to follow that mid band up sometimes. When the mid band is my closest area, I will always follow it up a tick or two. Like I'm like click, scoot, click, scoot, click, scoot, click, scoot. So I saw this morning and I thought that's a great lesson for everybody. Because Gino, you're not unique on this one. That's happened to all of us where it comes back. And if we would have been 2 ticks above, we were in, but we forgot to adjust for the movement. So great read, dude. I got nothing but praise on this one. And I'm sorry that you missed it. It wasn't because you don't know what you're doing. It's just that darn moving average. But this is the look, guys. Steal Gino's picture and put it in your spreadsheet, because that is the best of the best look ever. And then JW, let's see what we have. Couple things going on this one. You had to check out. Are you checked back in, Rob? Cool. You haven't missed anything too much. All right. Bad top. 50-50. Split triggers. Gap theory. Missed the first entry. Took the second entry with 2 divergences. How'd that turn out? Did that one work for you? JW? It did work out. Okay. Can I show you what I see? And I'm glad that it worked out. Bad top lessens the likelihood of success. When price gets anywhere near the midband and the large triggers are a full bar away, it lessens the likelihood of success. If it hits this one and you enter it, I dig the first shot with that much momentum. After two divergences and no areas inside of triggers and that huge split, it's likely to come back more often than not get this one. I'm glad you won. And you were relying on that momentum of a large chart for sure. And this goes back to the idea that momentum fixes mistakes. This is one of those trades I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole unless it came up here for me, unless it gave me that pull back here. And then it would be Shortsville all day long if those large get below. Because I don't know if it's going to go from the triggers or the midband or the one-to-ones or resistance or the divergence high up here in the synthetics. There's such a huge range that it becomes difficult to manage. No, so what, and you'll see this a lot. You'll see price exceed the midband, but when the large triggers don't follow, really on any day, it becomes problematic. And then guys, fear of missing out, jumping in at the top of the move instead of waiting for the pullback. I see you not showing stuff, JW. But I'm glad this one worked, right? Because it kind of momentum for the win. You took a calculated risk, I think is the best way to put it. I like it better when there's a midband in front of those triggers. It gives you the opportunity to make some money. And then when it goes super wonky, you can have zero risk on the trade in case it does pull back. And that's where just being prepared, locked and loaded, but you were getting coffee. So there's nothing you can do if you're getting coffee. That was an expensive cup of coffee. Good stuff. Buy high, get stopped out low, right? I just want to remind you guys that I see everything. Bum, bum, bum. If I see you showing me $1,000 worth of winners and your P&L is down $300, I know that you're hiding losers from me. And guys, I get it. It sucks to have to admit you're human in a room. It sucks to make yourself vulnerable and put yourself out there. But I'm going to tell you right now from experience, especially from my own experience, that you will learn more from your losers than you ever will from your winners. And I can tell you, one of the things that I learned from my losers, and JW, I'm so happy, is guys, I would take 3 or 4 shorts on the way back to the synthetics. And it wasn't until my brother pointed it out to me one day that I finally fixed it, that I stopped fighting it. So let's see what we have. Yeah. News made some crazy jumps, didn't it? It's funny how that happens. I love that you took this picture, Andy, because it just reminds you that news is nuts and it takes away advantages. And look at those timestamps. It's still reacting to news. I wish I would have done that yesterday. And then Ron says, this is the one we came up with together. Let's see what this is. Not a trend trade. No, this was all you, Ron. So, I love this. Let's talk about, and you skipped your divergence part of it. I see that. Your ninja crashed on that last trade. Man, JW, you forget that I understand how the software works and how NinjaTrader works. Your stops and targets were still in there electronically. So you jumped in. Even if it crashes, it still hits your stop. And that's 13 ticks off of it, right where the entry should have been. JW, I've had NinjaTrader crash in a trade and come back and been closed out for profits. They're all electronic. They're still in there. So let's do the full chart read on Ron. I love it. Looked like there was a termination condition over here that pushed it into a 50-50. And off the 50-50, the market screams all the way back up. And Ron goes, wait a minute. My large triggers are still going down despite it. My small triggers, while green, are still below them despite it. And he goes, boy, I do love a good one-to-one. And when that one-to-one makes it bounce, he goes, let me get to the right side of stuff. Let me make sure I have room to a target. Let me get down to the reversal bar marker here at those small triggers. See if I can't make just a little bit of money. Guys, this is, it's actually not even counter trend, Ron. It's against the small triggers, but it's very much embracing. It is very much embracing the idea that that market's going down. All of your triggers were below that fib, which means that this fib, even though there was a little overrun, is more likely to create that down push than it is to break and go up. Your smalls are below the large, so even though it's not odds favorable momentum, that fast moving indicator is still way below them. And then coming off of those one-to-ones, coming off of that key area, I love the chart read on this one. I love the chart read on this one. But it goes with the trend. It goes with the direction. It goes with the large triggers. You just went all Billy Baroo on the entry. And I love that you get to the business side of the small triggers. Instead of saying, I'm going to fight the small triggers and make opinions all the way up, you let it prove to you that the large chart isn't lying. And guys, this is a huge part of chart reads. Still relying on that large chart to give you the information that you need. That's a great one, Ron. Not a high probability trend trade. Definitely not. All right, Farak. Let me figure out which chart is which. So you're trading 3 charts on the NASDAQ. So odds favorable, strong triggers. That's what the large chart says. Your 21 says we're going up but into a termination condition. And you know that if it pulls back to the midband with that look, the midband might hold with all that momentum. Despite direction, I don't think your 21 gives you any advantage. But your 34 says, triple dog dare you to stop me. That's the best momentum ever. And your 5-1 says, hey, Farak, let me help you refine that entry all the way down to support inside of a trigger. Notice that they're split, and notice that he goes to the lower correction point. I like the trade, Farak. I'm not sure what the 21 did for you there. Let's do this real quick, just for grins. And Farak, I know that you understand why you're looking at that chart, right? You probably have a plan in place for it. But watch this, new users. I want you guys to see something. Did I need a 21 chart to take this trade? Did I need a 21 chart with all that momentum, with that pullback to support? Of course I didn't. But Farak's been doing this a little longer, and he adds some things in that maybe the new user doesn't. So I love it when you guys do that, because what it means, Farak, is I can say that even the new user, without having to add that, because everybody in this room is going, I need a 21-3 chart. I have to have a 21-3 chart because look at his victory. But the reality is you just don't, because your great trade didn't need it. And I know that you use it for other things. So I'm not saying get rid of it at all, but I'm just showing the new user. I think it's important that you guys remember that there is a way to be successful with this software, and keeping it very simple, keeping it very focused. And then you will add stuff as you grow with the software, as you become a better chart reader. And that's exactly what you see in Ron's trades, what you see in Farak's trades here. And Ron, I'm with you. I love the name of that trade because it says right in the name. Gosh, I think you did this on purpose. I really do. And if you didn't, Ron, you are brilliant beyond your own capacity. You ready? Do you guys know how I say, if you know what you're getting into, you know how you need to manage it? And the first thing that Ron writes on every one of his charts that he takes this trade is, hey, it's not a trend trade. Don't manage it like it's a high probability trend trade. And he even tells himself, this is the one that when you look at it on paper is financial suicide. But because of the patterns, because of the recognition, it does in fact create a statistical advantage. So even the guy that's mastered this trade reminds himself that it's not a trend trade. He reminds himself that this isn't a trade that's high probability, and it has to be a bit aggressive. And I guarantee when he got to this mid band and he's in and he's going, he's looking for fluctuations, he's looking for change, and he's not betting the farm on that trade. So something to think about there. Knowing what you're getting into pays huge dividends in understanding how to manage it. All right, Andy, this is the RTY. Oh, hold on. Can we talk about this one real quick? Strong triggers, clear path. The only challenge, Andy, was the split triggers, right? Do you remember that look? Yeah, you do. These are not favorable. Remember yesterday, guys, we talked a lot about this. And Andy, I hope this makes sense. Wait for your reversal bar at where you're expecting that market to continue. Wait for that reversal bar. Give yourself confirmation when it's this ugly, especially if it's diverges from one-to-ones. Your large chart looked great, but your small chart says, hey, Andy, let's refine it. Let's get a little more focused. Maybe wait for some level of confirmation. And by the time you get a reversal bar, you're so far outside of everything that this is a very avoidable loser. Does that make sense? Before you head off to work and go save the world. Love the read. Little confirmation goes a long way on that one. Great job, Andy. I'll see you tomorrow, man. Have a great afternoon. All right, I'll click on Haji's. Haji, if this is a 50-50 with divergence, I'm going to get your address from the Nexgen database. Nope, exact same trade. Guys, I love the large chart on this one. Haji, I love the large chart on this one. Same thing. So let's see, entry inside of split triggers, broke your trading plan by entering in split triggers and not waiting for a reversal bar. A weird thing happened with the stop. You were moving it down and it filled where price never went. You have no idea why that happened. Was it during news, Haji? Did you get caught in news? No? Sometimes on 25.3, 25.3. No, it hit your stop. It hit your stop over here at 25.3 where you had it. Andy, you will. I promise. You will. Repetition. Guys, you're going to hear me say the same thing so many times that it's going to click. The only problem is I can't guarantee when it's going to click. But you will. Bob mentioned it this morning. He's like, oh, strong triggers, not strong trigger. Yeah, split triggers, Haji, you knew what you did. And that's the cool thing. And Andy, this is the progression. So let's take a picture because you guys took the same trade. The first thing you do is you take the trade right here, right? And you get run over and you're like, fudge. And then we talk about it and you go, oh. And then you do it again, the exact same thing, and you go, fudge. And then after you say fudge, you go, ah, reversal bar. And then you do it again and you go, fudge. And then you go, reversal bar, split. And you're going to make the same mistake 20 times, but every time you present it in the room, you're going to be one step closer to avoidance. You're going to be one step closer to not doing it. And Haji, back me on this one. You're at the point now where you're like, oh, I don't need Mark to tell me what I did wrong. I got it, right? Man, then you're better than I am because I had to be told on stuff like 100 times on some of these things. But now, Haji, you know exactly why you did what you did. You know exactly what went wrong, and you actually know exactly how to fix it. The one thing that I may have said is why not go ahead and put that stop on the other side of the correction point? Because you were in at 23.6, 25.3, at 17 ticks. That may be the only thing that I could say to you is let's put the stops appropriate. If you're going to take a shot at it, at least the stop keeps you from taking a big loser. And that's kind of the safeguard a little bit. But I love the process. And Andy, I don't want you to worry about it. And guys, I don't want anybody to worry about it. The more you present in the room, the more conversations we have. And the more conversations we have, I promise you, the quicker you will get to where you want to be. Because you're going to get sick of me telling you this stuff. You're going to be like, ugh, stupid Mark, stop saying it. Let me see where we're at. I think I might have skipped one. That was that trade. Haji, did I miss this one? Nope, that's the same one. Okay. So we're down to Cav. All right, Cav. Boom! Here we go. So Rob, here comes your pivot stop out lesson. Here's the first one. The market created a pivot here, and Cav, thank you for this. Actually, before I get into the lesson on this, let me say that with odds favorable momentum and a clear path, Cav, you took the perfect entry and got paid, and it's beautiful. Everything about the trade is beautiful. The momentum is outstanding. The path is clear. The entry is freaking rock star. Beautiful trade, Cav. Let's go through a quick lesson, though. This is not a pivot stop out, because a pivot stop out suggests that I'm coming from a termination, and this adds strength, right? Guys, when you come from a termination condition, it adds strength to the move in the opposite direction. And this is why it's so important to understand that this is just a pivot where momentum was lost. This is not a pivot stop out. So, let me clear some stuff out of here. And let's go through the lesson that I put together. Did this for you, Rob. Thank you. This is a pivot with a loss of momentum. That's all this is, guys. This is all that this ever will be when it's hanging out all by itself. And guys, give me a Y if you see it. The buyers were in control. The sellers pushed back. And because the sellers took the momentum, because there was a loss of momentum, this magenta line prints, that negative number prints. This is only a loss of momentum. Is everybody cool with that? That's all that represents. So don't give it more power than it deserves. So check this out. When price reaches the divergence high and the triggers remain below, initially, it's just a termination condition. This is the very simple recipe. Let me make it bigger so you can see it. When price reaches the divergence high and triggers remain below, it's only a termination condition in the moment there. So there's the second part of it. Is everybody comfortable with that? This whole chain of events started with a pivot with a loss of momentum. When price came back to that divergence high and the triggers remain below, now it is a termination condition. That's it. And then all that means is on this bar right here, whoops, don't go short or don't go long. It may stop the market. So far, so good. When does it become a pivot stop out? When price trades above and back below. So when price trades above a divergence high and then back below, now it's a pivot stop out, PSO. And what does that mean? So here's your pivot. And from there was a huge push down. It was great. And then everybody that went short, if they stayed in and they said, you know what, I'm going to let this be where my stops are on the other side of my entry point, the buyers pushed right past it and then it comes back down. Or if the buyers took over and they're like, woohoo, we're home free, they get right past that line in the sand and the sellers push back. And guys, that's the look of a pivot stop out. First, there must be a pivot with a loss of momentum, and then price trades above and back below. And this is kind of cool. Notice that it trades into a termination condition, and it comes right back up, and it creates a second pivot stop out. And it's also 3 divergences in the same price range. And it's also weak triggers into that pivot stop out. Great googly moogly, that market's going down. Does that make sense, everybody? So there's one look at it. First, it's a pivot, and then it's a pivot stop out when price trades above and comes back below. So what do you think, guys? Is it a pivot or is it a pivot stop out right here? Man, let's see how many times I can grab the wrong tool. Rob, pivot or pivot stop outs? Just pivots. These are pivots where momentum was lost. That's all. That's all it is. So in order for this to become a pivot stop out, price would have to go down, price would have to exceed, and then it would have to go down again. Then it would become a pivot stop out. So understanding the language, guys, is going to help you a lot in deciding whether or not you are coming from a strong top or whether or not you are coming from a strong bottom. And then here we go again, and I wanted to do this one. There's my pivot with a loss of momentum, and the market dances all over the place. And look at that, money to be made up and money to be made down and down and down. And then price reaches, no. Where did you get that from? Pivot stop out means it's a termination condition. It's just labeling the kind that it is. What means go short, Rob? Having my rules met. Odds favorable, momentum, clear path, entry area. That means go short. Does that make sense? A pivot stop out may be the reason that I'm looking for the short, right? This pivot stop out may be the reason that I'm looking to go short because the market came from a termination, but the only reason I'm going to go short is if I have odds favorable, a clear path, and an entry area. So guys, I want you to see this pivot, and then 18 minutes later, 9 minutes later, the market comes to it, right? And the small triggers break and the large triggers break. Is this a pivot stop out? Price reached it, the small triggers broke it, and the large triggers broke it. What do you guys think? Is that a pivot stop out? If price reaches support and everything breaks, price is resistance. The area is broken. It's in the rear view mirror. So Cav, once small and large get below this area, That pivot's in the rear view mirror. It's just a broken termination condition. Does that make sense, everybody? Once the small and the large clear the area is broken, it's in your rear view mirror. Support, once broken, is in the rear view mirror. Support, once broken, is in the rear view mirror. Resistance, once broken, it's gone. It's good. Once the triggers go, that area is just a broken potential termination condition. That's it. It's an area that broke. And then we get the termination with a loss of momentum. I mean, the NASDAQ gave me such great lessons. So this is a termination. And guys, what's the rule for a termination condition? Price reached, triggers above. Not a pivot stop out, just a pivot with a loss of momentum. When price reaches, exceeds, and trades back above, now it's a pivot stop out. And a PSO at fibs is strong. And sure enough, that sets off the direction. So pivot, broken divergence line, the same way a fib breaks. Pivot with a loss of momentum, because remember, we reset. This one breaks, the next one's in play. Now it's a pivot stop out right at fibs, and that's strong, and that's what sets off the move up. Does that help a little bit, guys? Pivot stop outs require that the market returns to the area. Pivot stop outs require not just the line, but also the line holding, if you will. The line stopping the forward progress. And that's what creates the pivot stop out, is the movement in the opposite direction. And that's why this one isn't a pivot stop out, because the movement continued right through. And this one is a pivot stop out because it exceeded and then changed direction. So guys, that's a good lesson. And it's going to help, because a pivot on its own is just a loss of momentum. But a pivot stop out's pretty awesome, especially when it's at fibs. So there is your little pivot stop out lesson. And again, Cav, beautiful trade. And thank you for setting up that lesson for me. Did that help a little bit, Rob? All right, was this Haji? This was Haji. So, triggers, man. Triggers define momentum. Triggers tell you whether or not an area is broken. So, check out Haji's right here. And this is pretty cool, because that's a pivot stop out. Does everybody see it? You can't even see the previous pivot, but the line is there. The triggers don't break. That's a pivot stop out. And look at the shove. And it goes all the way to the mid band, and then the large triggers don't follow, and it continues down. And then Haji says, check it out, I got a clear path, and I have odds favorable momentum. Because the triggers didn't break it. Absolutely. Price exceeded the divergence low, and then went up. Then it changed directions. That's what makes it a pivot stop out. If the small and the large had gotten through it, Rob, well, then it's just a broken area. It's the potential to be a termination. So it becomes a termination first. Price reaches it. The triggers are above. It's a termination. When price gets back above that divergence high, that's when it becomes a pivot stop out. Let me give you guys this picture too. And this one is straight out of the tops and bottoms. Divergence creates a cyan line to the right. When price trades below divergence and then back above, don't take any more short trades. Now you're looking at that pivot stop out. And then if you just go back and circle them, guys, you'll see them, and you'll get there. So Haji, let's check it out. Let me read what you said. Came to the chart late because looking at other markets, late on entry. Trading plan would have you enter here with a reversal bar. Got out early just because you wanted to make some money. So odds favorable momentum, clear path, but you didn't have the entry area, right, Haji? You didn't have an area inside of favorable large triggers. They were on the incorrect side of the large triggers, and Haji said, my plan says take a reversal bar. So he would have been in up here, but he goes, man, everything still rocks. I'm going to get in right here. And then Haji can't find a reason for you to exit that trade. Can't find a reason for you to exit it other than just wanting to make some money. So what that means is that you don't have a management plan that you trust yet, but you're getting really good at your entries, which is making it easier to get paid without a plan. Does that sound fair? You probably haven't written on a piece of paper what it's going to take to get you out of the market yet. And guys, I can't stress this enough because understanding how you're going to manage your trade becomes a very, very vital point of what you do. When I first started trading, I got really good at my entries. Well, after I blew out my account and hated my brother, then I got really good at entries because I actually studied. But I still had overwhelming fear because I didn't trust my reads yet, because I'd already been burned. It cost me a lot of money, and I was trading with a lot of fear. And I would take the perfect entries. I would take, do I have a picture of the perfect entry anywhere here? I don't think I do. I would take the perfect entry, and let's just say it's this one right here. And that's the ideal, best of the best, can't wait for it. And then I would exit right there for a 2-tick loss. Or I would exit, I would move my stop to break even too soon, and it would be a break even trade. And guys, I'm telling you that I would take 25, 30 trades in a day, and I would be up 18 ticks. And I would say that 60 to 70% of those trades went the distance. I just didn't go with them. So I can't overstate the importance of understanding how you're going to manage your trade. And then the flip side of that is understanding what kind of trade you're in so that you know how to manage it. And Haji, this will all go away. The better your entries become, the easier they become to manage. So you're right where you need to be. You've been working on your entries and doing outstanding work with your entries, and that's going to simplify the management side of it. It really is. And Bob, I think everybody's there. It's scary to lose money. It's scary to feel like the market is turning against you. And if you hyper focus on little fluctuations here, it'll drive you nuts. It'll drive you nuts. And that's why when I talk about in the KISS plan, learn to trust the large chart a little bit. Learn to trust that that momentum is likely to push it, and it really does help. And you took a total of 3 short trades, Grant. So let's see. The first entry was a momentum style trade, and your first exit when the momentum was gone. Your second short was on the wrong side of the correction point, and you got stopped out because you weren't sure how far beyond the correction point it was going to go. And this is what Haji was talking about, waiting for the reversal bar when it's not perfect, absolutely beautiful, and it allowed you to get paid pretty easy. So this is like the whole cycle of how this software can be traded. Grant, are you in here? I'm not sure that he's still in here. Hopefully he reads it or watches this later. I want you guys to see some really awesome chart reading and some awesome execution here. Let it clear. With all that momentum, take a momentum style trade. And this right here is a momentum trade. So Grant, I'm going to go through it. Because it's a momentum trade, a loss of momentum is a reasonable and smart exit. And does that make sense, everybody? Because Grant knows that it's a momentum trade, Grant knows that getting to the wrong side of the small triggers is a loss of momentum. He exits the trade. He gets paid. There's money in that. His next trade is void of a window of opportunity. So the second trade does not have Rule 3 in effect. Area's on the wrong side. I don't know where it's going, so I'm hoping it goes down. And Grant, I'm not going to lie to you. A small loss real tight right over that, anticipating it to go down, I like the trade. With all that momentum, with the clear path, getting in at the areas, I'm totally cool with this. And because you know that you're beyond, small loss at this shot, nope, not shit, sorry, is acceptable. And then finally, you take the third trade. And the third trade has odds favorable momentum. And the third trade has a clear path. And you exchanged an entry area for confirmation of the move. And it was easy. And that's the one you said, I'm going to let this thing run down. And then you managed it super tight and it got you. But you guys see how when you know what you're in for, you know how to manage it. And Grant, I don't think you realized that you were going to give me such an amazing lesson with just one picture. The first trade is a momentum style trade. And if you know that it's a momentum style trade, it makes sense to exit with a loss of momentum. The second trade is a medium probability trade without an entry area. So if you're going to hope an area holds, it's okay to take a small loss when all the other advantages are in place. It's just a part of doing business. And then the third trade was the recognition that nothing changed on the large chart. Let me get confirmation. It establishes my risk. And let me take that momentum and a clear path off to profits. So not only did Grant get paid on momentum right here, he got paid on the trend trade in the exact same range. Grant, you get a gold star today because that was amazing. That was a great chart read. That was awesome execution. And I don't know if this went through your head, but if it didn't, it can next time, right? The idea is that when you understand what it is that you're looking for, you know how to manage it. And once you know how to manage it, you know when it's time to jump ship. You know when it's better than not better. All right, so good stuff, guys. Great pictures. We made it to the end of the pictures, except for the continue rise. And there's the key right there. I thought. And let's do it one more time. So I thought is one of the hardest ways to trade. I thought is one of the most difficult ways to make a living. And here's the cool thing, is I thought in this case can be replaced with indicators said resistance was more likely to hold than break. Is that fair, Grant? You can change your line of thinking from saying I thought it would hold to my indicator said that this area was more likely to hold because of momentum and having cleared it, which is why I entered right here, which is cool. And again, I can get on board with that. But then if you go back to, I think this will hold, but because it's on the wrong side of triggers, aka correction spot, I'll force it to give me a reversal bar for confirmation. So once again, you can take the thinking out of it and you can say, because this chart says resistance is likely to hold, I'll see if it lines up on the small. And then when it doesn't, I can say, well, because my entry isn't perfect here, even though my indicators say it's likely to hold, I will force the market to give me this little bit of confirmation. And you know what the greatest thing about that right there is? Is if for some reason this market runs up for 1,000 points, Grant, you never take that short trade because you know that it's not perfect and you insisted on confirmation. And guys, I think that that's a great way to look at things. Is if it's not perfect, why not wait for confirmation? Your large chart says everything's going down. The only challenge is you just don't know where it's going down from. You know where it's likely to go down from, so wait for confirmation. And then if it gets all the way up to here, it's not really the right trade anymore. And you have to rethink. Great job. Where are we at? We have odds favorable. This is the RTY again. But we have weaker triggers and divergence and absolutely no areas inside of favorable large triggers, which means that if you waited for a confirmation bar, you're in down here. Second divergence, second higher divergence prints, we know this is a red flag. And also, your large triggers are actually rolling up and they're split. And if you waited for confirmation, you didn't get caught in the trade. Does that make sense? So there's a real world example of exactly what we just spoke of. Odds favorable, screaming down. The first one gives you confirmation. If you're going to try the trade, you already know where your risk is. The second one never gives you confirmation. The triggers are split. They're even against when it gets to it. And it keeps you out of the trade. I think that's pretty outstanding. But the only way that works, guys, is if you know your rules, if you know what you're looking for. Odds favorable momentum directly into support, no matter what you hope or wish or want, no matter how much momentum you have, your clear path, it doesn't exist, even with the momentum. And it pushes all the way up to resistance, all the way up to resistance. And if you were hell-bent on taking this trade, you're saying it's not perfect. Let me wait for confirmation. And the confirmation pushes you all the way back down to support, where it's definitely not perfect. And you don't take that next one. Does that make sense, everybody? I feel like in the last few days, this idea of confirmation when the rules aren't perfect, I feel like you guys are making this a better class. I feel like you're giving everybody in this room a little extra to work with. Maybe a little extra safeguard, because the reality is it doesn't matter whether you want it to work or not. Not a pivot stop out. Directly to the mid-band. Large triggers are almost a far away. It doesn't matter what you want, guys. It doesn't matter what you want to have happen. It doesn't matter what you think. Change, I think, to the indicators say. Change, I think, to the rules are met. Change, I think, to I have a statistical advantage. And then the second one of these advantages go away, insist that it's perfect. And maybe that's the lesson today. The second, did I delete that one? I guess I did. If I don't have the best momentum, insist on confirmation. If I don't have a clear path, insist on momentum in an entry area, right? I think entry area is the biggest one. If you don't have a clear bounce point inside of triggers, insist if you're trying to take a trend trade on confirmation. And I think you guys will find that it'll keep you out of a lot of maybe trades and maybe get you into some of the ones that you might have written off. But remember, the large chart has to lead the way. So, 11:30. Guys, I'm going to take 2 minutes because I am very well hydrated. I'll be back in probably 2 or 3 minutes. And then when I come back, we are going to make it your class. So it's up to you what we do. I'll be back in 5. You guys are going to lead the way, and you're going to let us know what you want to talk about. Be right back. Hi, babe. What you doing? You want strawberry? You want strawberry? This one's my tree. No, this one is my tree. Almost done. All right, let's finish class, baby. All right, you guys, home stretch. Here we go. Let's see what we can get done. JW says, Mark, take a look at this and let me know what you think. To which I reply, that's a bad bottom with divergence. Amen, JW. That's not a pivot stop out. All that is weak triggers and a loss of momentum. I love that look, because what does that look mean? The one thing that you didn't write on this chart that I know that you know is that when I have weak triggers with divergence, it's likely to hit the midband. You knew that though, didn't you, JW? So for you guys that aren't as astute as he is, when I see weak triggers and it's coupled with divergence, that market is likely to reach the midband on the large chart. So JW says weak triggers, divergence, 3 divergences in the same price range, and the momentum phase on the small triggers, he goes, watch me make money. Watch me make money. Creating the expectation on the large chart, giving confirmation on the small chart. And remember we said momentum in, momentum out? JW, this is one of those ones that you just hold it while it's still going. As long as that momentum's going. Sometimes what I'll do is once I reach the target, I'll start trailing a stop right behind the small triggers, and I'll say any fluctuation takes me out. But if that thing decides to scream, I might as well try to be in it. Great trade, JW. Absolutely beautiful chart read. And that's all it is. Creating the expectations based on the patterns that the market provides and seeking an entry. Outstanding work. D-Rock. So we're putting the market flow chart first. Okay, so the market flow says, took a 1 up, 1 down from exhaustion bands, stop right above the 1 up, 1 down. So odds favorable momentum, absolutely. I agree. Clear path. I like it. Looks good, D-Rock. So here's the challenge. And let me get in here real quick. And I think that you're in that point of piecing it all together right now. First of all, I'm not sure why you still have yellow bars. I haven't seen those forever. I haven't seen those forever. So there may be a template to get rid of that. Well, what chart leads the way? This one, right? And then what's your entry chart? There's your secondary chart. And then market flow gets looked at last. So it seems like that one's on the wrong end of the spectrum. It feels like it would make sense to have the last chart you look at the end of the line. I could be wrong though. So now we go this way. Large chart is screaming to the downside with a clear path. Small chart is screaming to the downside with a clear path, right? So now you're looking, you're going, hey, do I take one of those up downs? Do I take one of those up downs? Well, I'm already outside of the bands. And that's problematic. It means that it's exhausted, right? And then I do get an up bar, but I'm way beyond. And this for me is where it becomes iffy. I don't disagree with your trade one bit, D-Rock, and I think that you took an appropriate entry and it was low risk and you took it off the mid-band. And what a great shot to see if that goes down. Everything's perfect. I mean, it's a great look. The one thing that you run into is it is very much a momentum style trade, but because you're already a few bars deep on the other side of those small triggers, sometimes on these, it goes against you and it turns into a trend trade. And that's what it did. But I think that you let the right chart lead the way. But you put in high probability trend trade, but you didn't take the trend trade. What you took was the momentum style trade. And it didn't work. Doesn't matter what I would do. I don't even watch crude oil, so no. Would I have bought the reversal? Oh, God, no. Okay. So you're asking that with odds favorable in a clear path, but the entry area is beyond the triggers, would I have waited for some sort of confirmation before I got into it? Probably. And then at that point, what does your large chart say? It says down with a clear path, right? And then up there where you think it's likely to hold, you get market flow confirmation. But at that point, you are fighting small triggers. So the areas are outside, but your risk is established. But fighting those small triggers, it may push up once again. You never know. But at least your risk is established. Does that make sense? But I like the idea of letting your third chart be third, making sure that everything says go. And it did, and you took the best shot at it. And it didn't work, and that's okay. And then the next trade becomes the trend trade when this trade fails. Great job. Rob, you drew a circle on crude looking for a move, and it seemed no more bars are printing, even though you see a bid-ask price. So, Rob, what you probably did, my friend, is you've slid it a little bit. Do you have the white arrow up here? Click on the white arrow in the upper right-hand corner, and it'll bring you back to the most current bar. Or you disconnected because it's an internet thing. But the most likely one, and let me know if that was it. See how once I move those bars off, I get that arrow? And I don't see the black highlighted. I see this moving, but this isn't. Once you click that arrow, it should get you back to where you want to be. Let me know if that works. No arrows. Show me a picture of your chart, please. And do me a favor. Make sure that you are green and connected. Because if your internet blinked for some reason, it's going to stop. Roku, same idea, right? Divergence, weaker triggers, everything says. So Roku, did you have the same expectation? Weaker triggers with divergence likely to go to the midband? I'm just curious because we see this a lot and I don't think people pay attention to it so much. Cool, beautiful. And then once you cleared trouble, you took it up straight to the trouble spot. Roku, it's beautiful. It's a great trade. It's an awesome trade. Guys, these are the trades that become easy. These are the trades where people go, gosh, I can't seem to lose. And I want you to see something. You're taking a trade when the bars are outside of the small triggers. That's the momentum phase, guys. That's the strongest look. And the bars are outside of the triggers, and that's the strongest look. And it's hard to stop a market because the bars have to get to the other side of it for that momentum to end. Guys, that is such a beautiful look. 1032, it's 1149. All right, show me your control panel, Rob. Is the green light, are you connected? That would be the second thing that I look at. And I actually had NinjaTrader freeze on me like that yesterday on the NASDAQ. Are you connected? I feel like I'm yelling, sorry. I can't hear my voice because of the headphones. So if I'm yelling in y'all's ears, I'm going to get one of you guys, I'm going to have a safe word. You are connected. So Rob, the best thing to do, it's frozen, is close your workspaces, shut down your NinjaTrader and reopen it. That happened to me yesterday on the NASDAQ for some reason. I don't know why. It just froze. And it was funny because it froze in the middle of a trade. Well, maybe that's not funny because I took a trade and my first target got hit and then I was up 7 or 8 points in it. And I noticed that it wasn't moving at all. And I was like, oh, crap. And I looked over at my trade of 8 and I'm watching my P&L go up and I'm watching it drop and up and drop and up. And I'm like, holy crap, I have zero control over this trade. So I had to close it via my trade of 8 workspace, but that happens sometimes. And I don't know what makes it happen, but a reboot should get you where you need to be. Hopefully. And guys, I feel like we may have done what we can do today. We had some great lessons on pivot stop outs. We had some great lessons on when it's not perfect. Maybe a little confirmation goes a long way. There's your gap theory again for you guys that don't believe in it. So if you did go long right here because, oh, I hope it goes, you got absolutely smoked as it closed the gap, which, you know, I'm not happy for that, but what a great lesson. What a great lesson to hopefully not have to do it again one day. And then guys, use your spreadsheet, take your pictures, go through the process. Can't stress that enough. This is how we're going to end today, is with this picture again. We're going to end how we began. Guys, I want you posting in the room. And I hope you noticed today that it wasn't me with this syllabus that said, I'm going to talk about confirmation bars, or I'm going to talk about the expectations of divergences and weak triggers. You guys posted in the room. And when you post it in the room and you give me these charts and there's something to talk about, guys, it creates lessons for everybody. So this is a community. And when you do that, you make the community stronger. So don't be afraid to post, and especially post the mistakes. And I got to throw some props to Haji. Haji made a mistake, and he policed his own mistake, and he identified his mistake, and he talked about how he was going to fix it, but he still posted in the room and created a discussion for you guys. So Haji, thank you for that. Do I know how to change the buy-sell box? What do you want to change it to? So that you can see it? Yeah, so right here, see the line with the two things off? That's your chart trader button. If you click it, you'll be able to turn the chart trader on and it'll give you the box. So right here, chart trader hidden or off, and that'll work for you. So guys, post in the room, please, everything. Do you see how D-Rock didn't say, hey, Mark, what's with the thingy? He said, here's a picture of what I need help with. And that helps me a lot. Use your spreadsheet, take a lot of pictures, but don't ignore them when you're done with your pictures, guys. Go back and study them, look at them, check those patterns out, and type the feedback that you receive onto the chart so that when you do go check it out, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect study tool. Keep it simple, know your rules. Simulate, 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 simulate. Guys, simulator is there for a reason. When you're uncertain, be on simulator. When you're testing new things, be on simulator. You are, D-Rock. You're doing great. Avoid the temptation of breaking your rules on simulator because it's just simulator. Guys, if you find yourself rich beyond your wildest dreams on simulator, but you can't make it happen live, it's because you're probably breaking your rules on simulator, because you're getting lucky, and because you know that there's no risk of loss. You're taking chances that you refuse to take live, or that you would refuse to take live, except that you've convinced yourself that it's okay to do that. So when you go live, you get your ass kicked. I've seen it. Keep it simple, keep it focused. When you know what you're getting into, you know how it has to be managed. And guys, on that, I bid you farewell.